All right. So how's everything going for you? Like with your business, how is everything going?
Actually, I kind of hit a wall. I
Okay.
didn't really, I have like to-do lists and all that. I'm pretty good on organizing, but I think what I'm lacking right now is motivation. Just the fact that we are in the process of doing our home. I don't know if I mentioned for residential assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the loan processing, construction. So everything is put on hold. But then the reason why I set up this appointment as well is because of the wealthy deals. So I enrolled on that AI, and I feel like this is a great platform. It's easier to use, but then with that, I was able to set it up. I have all my lists. I made probably 10 phone calls using just because the problem is I don't know if I should do um, is it ready mode dialer?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been using just my cell phone number in throughout, and I realized that I think it would be more beneficial for me if I do the multi dialer. And I used to use Redex for Realtor,
Mm-hmm.
and that one I didn't really find value on it, and it's a little pricey. It's like it came out like $150 per month.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for 6 months, and I just kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna just use my phone and
Wait, why didn't you like
start.
that? Why didn't you like that, Tyler?
It's because it's giving me the same number, and then there's a lot of DNC listed number, but then like I was told just to um, disregard that, still call them, just make sure that you're not soliciting and just say, asking for like providing service. Basically, you just reward it differently where you don't get attacked or something like
Yeah. But were you
that.
able
And
to call faster than if you were just hand dialing?
I did only the three dialers
Yeah.
at a time instead of like 10 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
It was, don't get me wrong, but I tell you, within those 6 months, I only was successful probably I could count 10 that I truly like talk to someone. Everything is I don't know if I'm getting spammed or they know it's like those weird numbers. It goes straight to the voicemail, or I mean it's normal. They will just pick up and hang up if they
Yeah.
know it's yeah.
Wait, so you
So
only spoke to 10 people within the 6 months using it?
10, yeah,
How
yes.
many dials were you actually making?
So when I first did it the first 3 months, I would say um first 3 months I spent about 2 to 3 hours. Um I'll say 100. I think if I remember it correctly, it was last year. 100 between 125, 175
Calls?
calls. But that's just not just ringing, not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
voicemail or pickup. But my contact is literally just 10 or even less. I can't remember, but
Wait, that actually sounds about right, except for the fact that it was 100 to 75 calls in the 2 to 3 hours. So if it was a triple line, because ready mode, you can adjust it where you can go more than 3 lines if needed, as it like automatically adjust. Usually the ones that are strictly triple line and they don't go above the triple, usually you'll call it
mhm.
like 200 to 300 an hour or so. So like during your call sessions, were they straight calling the whole time at a triple line dialer, or were you like a lot of breaks? And because that
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 too.
number seems off. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that too. Like taking like, oh, okay, let me just load my laundry, stop for a while, and then come back. So I think, yeah, but I remember looking at the stat like where it's like 100, yeah, 125, 75.
Yeah,
So
10%
that's
connect. I
from
mean,
9 to 12.
that's actually okay. So if you're being honest with me, like out of the two,
Mhm,
3 hours, how much do you think, if you remember, was actually spent on the dial time? Like actually dialing, not just with the dialer open, not you sitting at the desk, but when the number
mhm.
is actually dialing.
I would say less than 2 hours. That's just because I keep like, getting up, doing
Yeah,
something, and then
that
come
makes
back.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So
Okay.
the numbers that you're describing, besides the
Hmm.
fact that like I could tell that it wasn't 2 3 hours straight calling, they're not bad. Like the connection rate, it's not horrible at all. It's just a matter of volume. Like you just have to realize to do this and get deals, whether you're a realtor or whether you're going for investment deals or wholesale deals, it's
Hmm.
volume. For example,
Volume.
like true volume, not just 175 calls in 2 3 hours, but for it when I called my last session of 3.5 hours, I dialed
Hmm.
3,700 people.
Holy cow.
Yes. So it takes like volume. And that's what I'm saying is I would get the dialer because the hand dialing is going to suck. And also another question, were you calling from one phone number or multiple?
Um, Multiple.
How many?
So basically, I would dial. It would dial like as soon as I press the green button to dial, it dials. And then if they don't pick up or it goes straight to the voicemail, it would just drop and dial the next one in line.
Oh,
So I
no,
would have probably. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I meant your number, like not the dial numbers that you're calling, the numbers that you're
Oh,
calling from. Like
oh,
like
just one
your
number.
that's a big
My
issue too.
my cell phone. Oh.
So when you call so much like that, yeah, that phone gets marked as spam so fast, and people like sometimes it just goes automatically. Like people, they don't pick up. Now, if you're actually doing this thing and you want to call on scale, I'd recommend at
Mm-hmm.
least 30 phone numbers that you're calling
So
from.
so it just keeps swapping it.
Yeah, so every single dial that it makes, it switches the number so that they have time to rest and not be marked like that. That's a big
And
factor too.
is that offers that is that ready mode that you use?
Yeah, I use Ready Mode for that. For me, like I have 30 numbers right now in Vegas because I just moved. I'm attacking here. And it cost me $30 to initiate, $30 ongoing every single month. But it's probably going to be your best return on investment because it's such a small amount versus how much
That
activity it'll
is
get you.
pretty. Yeah.
Also, they might charge you more. So, like, try to negotiate if you can. They might charge like $50 a month or whatever. But usually they give bulk deals if you buy a bunch of numbers.
Okay. Okay. Ready mode. And we don't. We're not affiliated with that with wealthy investors.
I don't think so. I mean, Ryan might have a link, but I don't have it.
Okay. So ready mode. So that's my first thing because I think that's what I'm lacking. Although um, at least every week I have with the real estate side, I would send out. My goal for the past 2 months is to send out 10 to 15 mailers, like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually um, how do you call it? Like nurturing. So these are like the same 150 that I'm like going like I'm circling, and then I make sure. So those ones are um, so far I got some leads, but with the interest rate, so two of them, it just it didn't it fell off
Yeah.
deals, and
Yeah.
then uh, so that's my main thing right now is to make phone calls, and also I'm having a hard time between real estate and investing. I feel like I'm stuck when I told you about I feel stuck with investing because I'm finding issues on
Mm-hmm.
how to approach possible prospect or possible deals just because they know me as a real estate agent, and now I'm coming to them telling them like what I do on top of that because I got
Who's
warned
they?
already. They might let's say for instance my friends and the one that I have a group through next door. So they knew me from real estate, and now I'm trying to like tell them about this flipping that I'm possibly looking into wholesaling and all that. And then for me to approach them in like asking for like private money if they anyone who's interested on investing in real estate, I was just told by one of the agent like you can't do that.
Mhm.
So because now being a licensed agent, they said if you come in as a wholesaler or even asking for hey I could help you, um, I have an investor that's interested in buying your home instead of listing it. But if they knew already that I approached them as a like if you're thinking about moving as an agent to list your home, I cannot go around and tell them like, hey, I could actually have my investor buy your home for you cash offer. I can't do that. So now I'm like trying to figure out how am I going to do this because now I have to. create another account where I would have to separate the two business that I'm trying to do. I cannot mix them.
You mean like
So now,
the bank accounts? Like what do you mean
no,
mix them?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, mix the social media kind of thing. Like
Oh, I see.
basically, I have my next door. Strictly, I created that for real estate, my Facebook as a real estate, and my Instagram. So now I'm reaching out to friends and family on my Facebook. And as a like first it was like all real estate, and now I'm trying to post investment part of it. So I got a call and say I can't do that
Well, what type
from
of
my brokerage.
what do you want to do on the investment side? Do you want to flip, wholesale, rental?
As of now, I want to flip.
Flip. Okay.
So yes. So
Okay.
now I have actually there's a wholesaler that I reached out to at San Bernardino. I forgot his name. His actually I found him through school. So he gave me a list of possible so he's wholesaling it, and I got outbid. Um, so with that, I posted to at my Facebook and saying if you guys are interested on um, basically gap giving me some gap money on that property. Um, I don't know how do you say it. So I don't know how they found out, but one of the from EXP um, agent told me that I have to be careful on what I post on Facebook because now it's triggering that I'm doing some sort of investment.
Mhm.
But I don't understand like why are they like focus on me? I feel like because Camarillo is such a small community,
What is it?
and Camarillo
Camaria. Okay.
in Ventura County. So I feel like two of the agents because we have EXP group that I like it's like a meetup every Thursday, first Thursday of the month. So now they're seeing what I do on the side, and they're just I wouldn't say um they're um I didn't say like they're bad mouthing. They're just giving me a warning like what I'm doing. I have to really separate them because if they find out that I'm actually like on like my so-called like prospect clients that I come around and say, hey, if you want, I could have my investor buy your home, cash money, and then you can just, like our spillover, you don't have to worry about removing your junk. We'll take care of that. That I could get in trouble. That's what they told me. So
Okay.
instead
Wait.
of
So
me
are you?
in trouble of, oh, go
Okay.
ahead.
I was gonna say, are you struggling more with just that reputation and what people are telling you, or
Yes,
more so like the
yes.
actual work that needs to be? It's just that what people are
Well,
telling you.
both.
Okay. Okay.
Because now because I don't want to like I'm new agent,
Yeah.
and I want to pursue more of the business side of it, but now I feel stuck because now they're telling me like the season one, be careful because this is what you're gonna be looking at. If they find you, regardless of your intention, are for the best or for the like the best for the client, they could take it as you took advantage because you have the responsibility to call it code of ethics. I'm like, well, I'm trying to help them out. Like I'm giving them options. Like I could list their home for the market price, or I could come in as an investor and take a cut, like let's say 70% what we're saying. And then they don't have to worry about anything. They could just walk away. If the main thing is to have, let's say, $100,000, then you'll get that.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
was told like don't do that because now instead of coming in as an investor part, you need to refer that client of yours to another agent.
Okay. So here's what I want you to know
Okay.
is I want you to disregard anything those agents said. The reason is most people just don't get it. And
Mhm.
I was an agent. I actually still technically I'm an agent still in California. I live in
Mhm.
Vegas. I'm still an agent. But I came from agent or investor to agent to now investing again. And
Mhm.
the only pushback I got with like brokers and stuff was wholesaling, but flipping was fine. But
Mhm.
the whole like idea behind, hey, like us investors, we take advantage of homeowners. Like we don't.
Mhm.
We actually are trying to see what's the best for their situation. So if I do
That's what
talk
I
to a
said.
seller, and usually one of the first things I ask if they want to sell, I'm like, hey, like, why not just list it with a realtor? Like that might be the first thing I say. And they will tell me why they don't want to. They're like, no, like I don't want to because of XYZ. I'm like, okay, cool.
Mhm.
Like I might try to buy this actually. Like, and so you're giving them the options, like you said. So whatever
Mhm.
those people are telling you, disregard it. It's okay. A part
Yes.
of being in this business is you have to be okay with sticking in your lane and being around the
Mhm.
people who will support you because it's hard. It's a hard business in
Mhm.
itself, like the actual work that needs to be done. The outside voices make it harder. And I don't want you to keep going through that. So keep it on
Mhm.
the quiet of like in your brokerage and stuff. Like just don't even talk about that. If you want to go on social and post about that, go ahead and like post it. It's like
Mhm.
you're the only like if your broker have you talked to your broker themselves?
Yes.
Okay. So they don't
Yes.
want you to flip. They don't want you to buy.
They well, they don't want me to. If I were to talk to someone, I have to make it clear. Like if I come in as an investor, don't even talk about the real estate stuff. Like don't even say that I'm an agent as well. But I was told like I have to disclose that I'm a licensed agent, and
Yeah.
they told me yes on contract, but not talking to them. Like don't give them an option. I could list it or I could have my investor buy it. I have to separate
Yeah.
them. They told me.
Yeah, and the only reason
Is
why
that
your broker is
fair?
saying that,
Uh-huh.
that's very fair because they're telling you that because they don't want to get in trouble in litigation and
Mhm.
liability purposes. So I think that's really good advice from your broker, actually. That's a good broker
Okay.
because I don't say I'm an agent on the phone unless they ask, but no one
Hmm.
asks. On the contract, it for
Okay.
sure says I am a licensed agent in California, and they have to initial that spot so they understand. So like it's super clear. So that's good advice from your broker. Now, if you wanted to
Okay.
wholesale, that's probably when you'll actually get in like to a clash with your broker. So I wouldn't even because here's what happens is I was at a brokerage being a realtor
Hmm.
and I started flipping, which was fine with my broker, and then I started wholesaling and I started blasting out my wholesale deals to all the agents. And my manager slash broker caught wind of it. And they're like, "Hey, what is this?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm wholesaling." So like, if they don't want to go for a listing, like I get it under contract and I find another buyer to sell it to. And they're like, let me think about that. And we talked again multiple times. Like, I don't want you to do this. I was like, why? Like, they don't want to list. They specifically told me like you can listen to the call. They
Hmm.
don't want to list.
Yeah.
And for them it was liability. Like we want to have the liability against
Or
us,
they don't get
and
paid.
they don't get paid. That's what they didn't say. But that's another thing is they don't get paid.
Yeah.
So with flipping, most brokers are fine. With wholesaling, I would keep the wholesaling under the wraps when talking to your agents,
Got
brokers.
it.
Flipping, fine, but just ignore what they say. Like, is that helpful
Okay.
for that part?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I did mention wholesaling, then
Mm,
flipping. So it's
mm,
not, I said it flipping and the wholesaling. I said wholesaling first so I could get capital. And
okay.
then when I,
Oh,
yeah, and
okay.
then I said flipping.
Okay.
So,
So you want to
okay.
wholesale right now?
Um, trying.
Perfect. No, we'll walk through this all. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Okay.
Okay.
So now that we have that part cleared of like, okay, ignore what they say. Now
Okay.
it's the actual work that needs to be done. So
Okay.
and maybe this is the first thing I want to touch on is one is you're already familiar with a little bit of dialers, and the first thing about that is you got to realize when you're starting out and maybe a dialer's new to you or the system's new, the process is new, like how do I put this lead here? Usually, if
Hmm.
you tell yourself, I'm going to sit down at this dialer and cold call for 3 hours, and you set a 3 hour time block on your schedule, you'll probably only call for like an hour or less because you're new and like you're figuring it out. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what happened in those 6 months of Red X,
Oh,
similar to
yeah.
that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Now, as you get better and you do it more, then when you tell yourself, I'm going to sit down for 3 hours, you'll actually call for like 2 hours, 50 minutes because you have pee breaks and stuff, but you'll be calling
Hmm.
actual the whole time. And that's how you get
Calling.
the numbers up. So it does take work
Okay.
in a lot of volume. And to give some perspective, I really just want to shift the perspective first before we go into the
Okay.
details. Let's say, let me get my calculator. Let's say you wanted to get one deal, one wholesale deal. Now, to get one wholesale deal, the first thing we got to look at is your closing rate. How, um, out of how many leads that you get, how many can you actually close, get it under a contract? Now, let's say because you're new to this part, it's a little bit different than the realtor closings.
Okay.
Let's say you close 1% of the leads. So that's probably on the lower end. I think realtor average nationally is like 4, 5%. on average.
Mhm.
But let's just say like worst case scenario, 1% closing. One one deal divided by 1%, you need 100 leads. So now it's like, okay, like that doesn't sound that bad. Like, how do I get 100 leads? Now, this is the part that I was going to set the expectation is for me, if I'm cold calling myself, so I can speak English, it's not a VA doing it. If I'm cold calling myself, even on a kind of a bad list, an old list, high equity, no big targeting, just a massive tens of thousand list, I can at least pull one lead out of every thousand dials. That's usually what happens. It doesn't mean every thousand, but like I might call for
Mhm.
3,000, nothing, but the next thousand I get four. Like it's usually like that. So on average, if it takes me 1,000 dials to get one lead and I need 100 leads, then 100
Oh.
times 1,000, 100,000 dials. And now it's like, wow, so that's realistically what it could take to get one deal, maybe more, maybe less. Now your perspective is there of like, oh, I get it.
Mhm.
And then it just comes down to, okay, like when could I dedicate time to call? How many hours is this?
Mhm.
Because for me, on average, using ready mode, not batch dialer or call tools, because call tools and batch dialer are similar to where I think it only sticks to three line. But if I'm using ready mode, I can at least dial 500 people an hour, at least.
Wow.
Sometimes it's 400, sometimes it's 1,000. Like kind of depends on how people pick up and stuff.
Mhm.
But let's assume out of the 100,000 dials, let's assume that let's see how many hours that takes divided by 500 on ready mode. That's 200 hours of calling. Then it's like, oh, like how long will that take me? Depends on your schedule. So if you call
Mhm.
2 hours a
Wow.
day, 100 days. Like now it's like, okay, now the perspective is set. But it's not like even if you set time on your calendar for 2 hours a day, again, when you're new,
Mhm.
you're only calling like an hour, 30 minutes because you're getting used to this. So you really got
Mhm.
to give time. Was that helpful just to understand like
Yes,
the
it
sheer
is. It's just
volume?
now
Okay.
like the way you explain the numbers, now they're attaching
Yes.
numbers. I'm like, holy moly, I'm not
Yes.
even getting a fraction of
Yes. Yeah,
it.
that's why when people were like, because you could be doing the right things, you could be doing the cold calls, but just
Mhm.
not enough of it. And then the other
Mhm.
scenarios, if you're doing enough of it and you're still not getting deals, then it's just sometimes you just need to give time. Like you need to
Mhm.
give it time. But in this case, it just wasn't enough volume in itself.
Mhm.
Like you would get deals eventually, even calling a little bit a day, but it just so much longer. That makes sense.
It does. So
Perfect.
when you say, so you do the cold call, you don't have, I thought you have a VA.
Well, I had multiple VAs, but I'm shifting my markets. Actually, we haven't had a cold calling campaign in a long time because I had the VAs like 3 years ago, multiple VAs and a lead manager, and I was the closer. So the VA would get the
Mhm.
lead, it would go to the lead manager who would warm them up to make sure that they're ready to sell. Once they got hot and they followed up with them, then they send to me, and then I would call and close it over the phone or in person. But for a couple of years, all my deals had come in from MLS, social media, and relationships with wholesalers because I flipped. So I wanted to buy a lot during the last
Mm.
3 years. Now I'm not trying to buy, I'm trying to wholesale. So I'm bringing back the cold calling campaign and I'm doing it in Vegas for the first time ever. So I wanted to lead it myself just to really kind of see like the difference. I've never been in a new market. This is new for me. So I'm going to lead it myself and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's a situation.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to move to Vegas?
Oh, Brian Davila. We were talking on the phone,
Uh,
and I told him like my plan that I moved to Fresno
okay.
to relaunch cold calling because I was
Mhm.
already in Vegas, and then I moved to
Mhm.
Fresno for like 6 months. I wanted to finish out those flips because they were hard, they were a little bit rough, and I wanted to do a new cold calling campaign there, lead it myself, be the closer in person, so I didn't have to hire sales guys and just relaunch that thing fully. And he's like, "Well,
Mhm.
where do you want to end up?" And my girlfriend's here in Vegas, and he knew that I wanted to be back in Vegas eventually. He's like, "If you want to
Mhm.
move back eventually, like, why don't you just do your business here? Like, actually do the Vegas market." And I
Mhm.
told him, I was like, "Well, after like losing money on these house flips, because last year was hard for the recession,
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to pick the thing that I knew would for sure work, which is the thing I did
Mhm.
before, cold call in my market, because I knew that market like the back of my hand." He's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I guess that makes sense." But then we talked more, and
Mhm.
he convinced me, and so I'm back in
Well,
Vegas.
it makes sense though what he said.
I
Like,
did,
yeah,
yeah,
it does make sense.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so okay, okay, I guess that's what I'm gonna do, cold calling. I mean, is that the only way to get started with wholesaling? Just volume and then build relationship.
that's gonna be
Eh,
the cheapest effective way. You could also wholesale on market, but that's again, that becomes I don't like to wholesale on market personally. It's like a personal choice.
Mhm,
A lot of people do
mhm,
it. I've done it. I've got deals from wholesalers who found the deal on market and sent it to me. I was like, wow, I missed that one.
mhm,
But I just personally don't like it. It's I don't know. It's everyone's a little bit different. There's cold calling. Texting is your
mhm.
other cheap option. You can text homeowners directly. All the other marketing strategies direct to seller, they just cost a lot more. So like if you send mail to people, that costs so much more than
Yeah.
cold calls and texts. TV
Mhm,
ads, PPs, like paid pay-per-click ads cost so much more. So that's
mhm.
why like that's usually where people start.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
let's go over the game plan now because I want to have a clear plan for you. How many hours do you think you can commit to every single week or every day, every
Every
week
s-
to
okay.
this cold calling?
Okay. So I am not sure if I mentioned I do work. I have another part-time job which I
Hmm,
work 3 times a week.
mhm.
So, but I'm pretty much open on the weekends. I do
Okay.
have two boys as well. So my schedule is really busy.
Yeah.
So what I do if I work 3 days a week, on those 3 days that I work, I dedicate at least 2 hours each day to review all my like the training with wealthy investors. I watch the videos. Like write down notes, and then
Mhm.
on those two, like for instance, today's my days off. It's
Mhm.
either I'm on the Zoom meeting with real estate, which is normally if it goes to 9 to 12, and then I have a meeting with you for an hour,
Mhm.
and then another meeting with. It's basically I feel like I'm doing a lot of learning for now, building my data, and I still haven't decided with my CM. So there's so many roadblocks that I'm facing right now because now I have a CRM that I use through KV Core. And that one I kind of ditched for the past 2 months. And then now that I have this AI with wealthy investors, I feel like this is going to work so much better if I'm going to focus on investing because now I could nurture, I could keep track of who I contacted with, which I haven't even played actually. That's one thing too that I've been trying to learn because I think um, Ryan is adding more features and also the dialers as well. So I feel like I'm giving so much information now. It's like, oh shoot, there's ready vote, there's batch dialers. How am I going to learn how to use
Yeah.
this platform? So I would dedicate at least, so to go back to what you asked me, so 2 hours, that's 6 hours, and then on my days off, so from 9, I would say it it's not a solid time because I would dedicate from 9 till 5, but then in between I'm doing errands. So there's no solid time frame that I'm trying to establish. If I'm gonna be on phone calls from 9 to 12, that's just phone calls, and then from 1 to 3, like follow-ups. Majority of the time I'm getting pulled. Oh, I have to pick up my boys. Oh, there's a practice. I have to drop them off. Oh, I have to cook dinner. So there's so many things going on. So I really need to. I know what I need to do, just like to block time, like time
Okay.
blocking. But with that, I still struggle. I'm getting pulled left
Yeah.
and right. So I
Yeah.
would say 6. I would try to do 20 hours. So between 20 to 24, if I could do. That's everything though. That's from watching videos, learning new stuff, um, follow up, sending mails, just making 10 calls.
Okay.
I
Now,
haven't yet done um, make offers stuff. That's
yeah.
one on
Okay.
my list.
Okay. So 20 to 24 hours a week, you think you can realistically commit to just the business itself, the real estate
Yes.
stuff.
Hmm.
Okay. So hold on. Let me make sure I got your schedule. So you have a 3 day a week part time job, you have realtor work, and then you're planning to investing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's actually talk about that first before I get into all the step plan. So for
Okay.
the realtor work and the investment work, luckily because you're cold calling, you can actually combine those two. So now you don't even have to think about, oh, I have two different jobs. No, it's the same marketing. Cold calling because here's the thing. When you talk to any homeowner, you just want
Hmm.
to figure out if they want to sell. Now, everyone says no until you get one. And then they say, yeah, actually, I am interested in selling. And then it's like, great, now you're just trying to see what kind of seller they are. Are they a seller that will sell discounted, or like, or do they not need to sell discounted? So in those conversations, I approach as the buyer first, even though I'm not saying, I'm just, hey, are you open to selling?
Mhm.
Let's say they say yeah. Maybe the conversation becomes like, oh, like, what were you hoping for? Like, what price were you hoping for? Then it's like, oh, make me an offer. Like, actually, I don't know what I can offer yet. I'm really just to see if you're actually interested in selling. And from there, they're gonna say something. They're gonna say something that gives you an indicator of like, oh, this is probably a listing or maybe a
Mhm.
creative deal, or it's something that says, oh, like maybe this could be a potential actual deal because they said a lower number under market. That's like, oh, like it makes you start to think. Now from there, it's just filtering and finding out like, can I list this eventually, or can I get this as a deal eventually? So like the marketing is just cold calling. So you don't have to do separate prospecting for your realtor business. And honestly, it's going to help you because you won't have as many buyers. You'll just be doing listings, and those are so much easier. Like I hated buyers
Mhm.
because it
Oh,
took
yeah.
so long out of my day. So many
Yes, it does.
showings
It's yes.
versus if you
I
just
like
do
it
this.
though.
Oh
Super. I
no.
like it because I spend so much time because my goal is actually to have all my families and friends to become a homeowner. So I've been doing like home buyers workshop, educating them. So I've been doing that as well. So I'm kind of hosting one. I'm creating one for next month where I'm gonna host it in the coffee shop. So I just
Okay.
want to educate them. So see, like it's like I have my passion, and at the same time, I want to focus more in investing. But now, I don't know. I'm just torn apart. Like I'm doing so much in so many
Well,
like on my time.
let me bring this up.
Mhm.
Usually passion, it comes from being good at something. And I'm assuming you took a lot of buyers in the past. Is that correct?
I, yeah, I could. Yeah, I could say that.
So
Buyers
right
not.
now, you're
Mhm.
not passionate about listings or investing yet because you just haven't done it enough to got to the point where you're
Mhm.
like, I'm good at this. So what is the goal? What is your goal out of getting those buyer workshops? What are you trying to pull out of
Um,
it?
to help, like I feel like people, like especially now, rent are going high. I mean, there's so much that I like. Even my friends, I know they're capable. They're capable of mortgage payment. But they're not informed or not educated of how to become a homeowner. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's my job to let them know this is the benefits. I'm gonna walk you through it. I'm gonna connect you to people that can help you step by step. And so I get more referral through that because they feel like, oh my God, I didn't know you can do this, you can do that. But that's the buyer agent side. But I'm learning this creative financing, so I'm more in tune to that. I'm like, oh my God, this exists that you actually can buy a house without having money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so those are the things. So I want to like integrate them somehow. Like, you don't need to have money to own a house.
Okay.
Like just there's so many
Now,
ways to do it. Now I'm learning the investing part.
but what would you pull out of them? Because that's what you're giving people. Are you trying to help
Uh,
all these buyers get their houses? Is that what you want from it?
yes. I mean,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Now, what do you
So
think long term is
mhm,
going to be better for you to be focused on the realtor listings or buyers? Like if you're trying to scale.
scale listing
Okay.
investment. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it sounds
I
you're
know, I
answering the
know.
question. Like, and now how many
I
hours a
do.
week were you planning to put towards this buyer workshop slash handling your buyers hours a week?
Well, this one is I just attended a workshop, was it last week? So now I'm creating one. I'm working with another realtor and lender company to put it together. But with the holiday coming out, so we're having a hard time of putting it together. It's either live, like in a coffee shop, or we're just gonna do it as Zoom. So that's
Mm-hmm.
still up in the air. But that's just like a one time. I just wanna bring in because I have 6 people that I'm nurturing that they're ready. They've been ready to buy, but interest rate is 8.5 right now, so they're holding back. So I just want to educate them because they're like, okay, if you don't do it now, if you wait till next year, you're gonna be out of luck. Because now,
Yeah.
if the interest rate goes down, then the bidding war again, you know.
Yeah.
But the
What's your
house,
what's your
go
priority?
ahead.
Like what's the main thing that you want to focus on this upcoming year?
this one, that's what I'm trying to work on. So I started to, like just basically asking myself, what do I really want to do? So the number one that came out of my list is focus more in investing, meaning I need to learn more how to do creative financing to be more comfortable on how to present it to people. Now I'm tackling like, hey, I want to do wholesale. And then after that, flipping, because I have more people that I've been talking to about construction. I have people lined up already. They're waiting for me. I'm like, when are we going to start project? And in my response, like, I haven't found a deal because I haven't really worked hard on finding a deal. Although two deals like didn't work out after all, but so I kind of like gave up
Okay.
already. I'm like, ah.
Okay.
So
So
that's the
here,
goal is, oh God, that's the
that's
goal.
good. That's good to know. So we can't have multiple priorities. When you pick a priority, it's a priority because that's what we're actually going to focus on. So I want to
Mhm,
make sure that after this call, like you actually take a hard look at the upcoming calendar you have
mhm,
and adjust it if needed. Like if you're like wholesaling is my priority, like make sure the calendar reflects. Like maybe no more buyer workshops, maybe just like all in because that's how you get it. It really is.
mhm,
It's just straight work. The people who get the deals, they're not smarter
mhm,
than you. They're not better than you. They just had the priority and they like crushed that priority.
mhm,
So that's honestly like just after hearing you talk. I mean, you're kind of telling me
mhm,
like what you actually want. And if you're telling me what you want, I just don't want you doing the things that'll detract you or distract you from the actual goal. So
mhm,
let's assume you can actually spend 25 hours a week doing your calls if you just really did focus on that, and kept your part-time job. How many hours a week
mhm.
are you doing your part-time job? I should have asked that.
Um, Between 25 to 30 hours a week.
Oh, okay. Oh
Mhm,
dang. Okay, so yeah, you'll probably work a lot. So yeah, let's say you did have another 25. That makes sense now. 25
mhm,
hours a week committed to your real estate investing or slash wholesaling right now.
mhm,
A good chunk, like most of that should be the cold calls itself and then the follow-ups. Like that's pretty much going to be all of it. And the other time that you're going to be spending on that is actually not going to be on the coaching calls. Like I know they're good, they're helpful to get comfortable, but now you have an understanding of what to do. So now I really
mhm,
just want you to like honestly ignore the coaching calls now. I want you to do the work because your time's limited. You told me you got a part-time
mhm,
job, 25 hours, you got some realtor work going on, and you have 25 more hours to dedicate to your actual wholesaling. Now, in
mhm,
that time period, I want you calling at least 20 hours a week. And I think, I mean, first, before I go on to like now explain the step by step
mhm.
process, is that fair? Like just based on everything you've told me?
Yes, it's fair.
Okay.
It
Okay.
makes sense. I mean, I like the fact that you're really structuring it where I'm lacking because I'm not
Yeah.
getting the result I want to because I know what I want, but yet I'm not laser focused on how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So if it
Yeah.
means for me to dedicate a 20 hours per week calling, then I
Mm-hmm.
should do that. That's my priority.
Yeah. It's the boring work. So all the magic, all the success you want, it's in the work you're avoiding. That's all it
Mhm.
is.
Yes,
Now,
I think.
now let's do this thing. Do you have a like a pen,
uh,
paper, or something to
Oh,
write
I've been
text
writing.
notes? Oh,
I've
cool.
been writing.
So this is the step by step thing I want you to do now because I know like anxiety it comes from like not having an idea. Like, you have so many options. Like now, what do I do? Let me tell you what you should do if this is the route you want to take, and I'll give you
Okay.
different options within the framework. But first step is get a CRM. You want to be able to handle the leads that you actually are going to be pulling. Do you have one set up for your wholesaling yet?
No, actually, I
Okay.
tried to do. I think Casey forwarded me your
Yeah.
Podio.
Yeah.
You see, I haven't done anything to that. But then,
Okay.
isn't it like the AI has the CRM as well? The new
Yeah, the wealthy deals, it does. But I just haven't tested it. I would be hard for me to gauge on like how good it is. So maybe you could test
Mhm.
it, but we just know Podio works. And I did ask Jenna, the wealthy deals person. I was like, hey, like
Mhm.
if a student starts to use that CRM, like are they able to export all the data to put it in their own
That's
CRM if they
correct.
want to change?
Uh-huh.
She said, yeah. I was like, okay, so you could try it, but is
Mhm.
honestly just pick one. Pick one
Okay.
CRM that you can stick with. Um, if Casey already forwarded you the my Podio setup,
Mhm.
I would just follow the instructions if you wanted to, because Podio is free. It's completely
Mhm.
free until you start
Oh,
adding employees to it. So once you add
okay.
employees in it, it goes up every single month.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
actually, I don't know. They might have changed their process. It might be $9 a month now. I don't know. They always change stuff because I know they had some changes recently, but I don't know their exact thing. So maybe I should double check. But
Okay.
Podio or Wealthy Deals. So that's step number one.
Okay.
Which one would you think you'd pick?
I think I will go with Podio just because
Okay.
I think I've watched your initial YouTube. Was it
Mm-hmm.
YouTube? Because it was me and Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just stopped working on.
Yeah, that's
I'm
all
being
right.
honest. Yeah.
That's okay. I mean that. I mean, don't be ashamed. Like we all go through different phases where it's
Mhm,
like we'll either not do the thing we're supposed to be doing because of either like we just don't know or it's just like we're scared, and that's completely normal. We all have things we're scared to do. So after you get the CRM set up, Podio, then it's data. You have wealthy deals. So I would actually use that. That's a great data source with the AI scores. Like no one else has
mhm.
that.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
about to start. Yeah, I'm gonna start using that, and I'm so excited. Like I'm because some of the students
It
who have
is.
started to use it, they tell me like their metrics of like, oh, here's how many calls I made, here's how many connects, how many leads. I was like, that's good. Like that's really
Right.
good. And like, where'd you get your data? And it's always the AI score. So
It is. It
use
is.
that.
It's really
It's
good.
it's crazy. So
Hmm.
I would pull the data from there. Now, once you have the data, and when you pull data, it's gonna be dependent on how much you are actually wanting or willing to pay. So let's say I don't know. It depends on your budget. But for like, if you're
Hmm.
planning to skip trace it, because that's the next step after getting the
Hmm.
data to get the phone numbers for all those homes that you're trying to target. It could cost 5 cents a skip if you use the Pineda data, or like 3 cents a skip if you use kind skip tracing. They're like the same thing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you can do that. And so like if you get 10, what if you pulled 10,000 records? 10,000 times 0.03, $300. So it just depends on how much you're willing to spend. You don't need a lot at the beginning. You don't need a lot. So you just pull some kind of list that you're targeting for your area in Camarillo. Or are you doing it
Hmm.
virtually or are you going Camarillo?
Camarillo. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Ventura
So you
County
can,
actually. So
okay. Okay. So you
yeah.
can take listing. Okay. Actually,
Hmm.
what so when I was starting out, one of my biggest mistakes was
Hmm.
targeting too much of a county. Like Fresno was my main market that I knew I wanted, but after
Hmm.
getting my first couple deals, I was like, yeah, let me crush the whole Central Valley. So I targeted the Fresno County, which is like a bunch of cities plus
Hmm.
surrounding counties and cities. And after getting those leads, I was like, I don't even want to buy this one. And I would just prefer it to a
Right.
realtor. So like I was burning marketing money, and I was like, if I got that lead
Hmm.
in Fresno, I would have actually wholesaled it or bought it. So be very like, I would really think about targeting the market
Well,
that
uh-huh.
you can wholesale, flip, and list, so that you're comfortable with that stuff. And yeah, I'd pick that one. What
Yeah,
were you
because what
saying?
I did is with the AI, so I go for 800, anything scores above 800. So, because in my area, Camarillo is not necessarily for flipping. The homes
Mm-hmm.
are really good. There's only one area, I would say, one street that's kind of like below the market. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
in every street you have that not necessarily bad area. So whenever I do 800 score and above, what's showing up is mainly Simi Valley and Port Wainimi. Those cities are normally, you can find homes, like you can turn it, flip it with um, with market price because it's a good area. So I kind of
Okay.
like skim through it. Like I would get, like, let's say the last time I checked in, I would go like 100 lists, and I have actually I would take 10, 25. Then that's what I did my mailing, like if they're interested, whatnot. So I focus on wholesale points rather than rentals because you have three different category. And I'm not seeing anything in my area, Camarillo or even Thousand Oaks, because those are nice areas too. So what's showing up is Simi Valley. There's only three main cities that's coming up with whole the high wholesale. Simi Valley, Ventura, and Port Wainimi. And
Okay.
Port Wainimi is good because it's by the beach, but it's not a good area.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So
So I
you'll
know
pick your
the three areas. Yeah.
okay. So you'll pick your area with the data. You'll have to skip
Mhm.
trace it. What would you use to
Okay.
skip trace to find the numbers?
Skip trace. Well, I try to do. I have since I'm not doing the volume, I have a title company rep that I log in. I pay extra to get lists to foreclosure and pre-foreclosure and default payments. So their numbers is kind of accurate. So I just do that. So I
Okay.
plug in the home address and then I have
Okay.
my numbers to call.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily like now if I'm going for volume, I'm not getting any. That's my real estate stuff. That's what I do.
Okay. Wait,
So,
so
but what would you say with the script tracing? Like, what do you use
well, how
for
much?
mass
Well,
volume?
for mass volume, I would use
Hmm.
like the Pineda data. It's 5 cents a skip, or kind skip tracing, 3 cents a skip. Because honestly, from 3 cents a skip to like 13 cents a skip, all the skip tracers are the same. Like
Yeah.
they just
Okay.
they just mark it up. It's the same
I'll do
data.
Pineda.
Yeah. So you can do that, and it allows you to actually get good numbers for bulk, bulk amounts of properties and owners. So now that you have the skip trace X, so you get your CRM data skip
Mm-hmm.
trace. Those are the
Scripts.
first
Yeah.
three steps. The
Okay.
next step after that is just picking your dialer. Um,
They
and
said ready mode.
this is personal preference. I use Ready
Hmm.
Mode. I used a bunch, so or a couple. I use Mojo, Call Tools. I heard things from Batch. From my understanding, Batch sounds a lot like my Call Tools when I use that, based on the numbers. Ready Mode is the one that I was like, "Whoa, this is cool. This is really nice." It's
Mm-hmm.
not
I'll try that.
super user friendly at first because
Oh,
Mojo
really?
super user friendly, like for beginners, because that's most people's first dialer. You're
Uh-huh.
already kind of familiar with dialers. So luckily, Ready Mode does have like training videos, and you just watch all of
Okay.
them. And that might take a little bit of time, but it'll help you actually understand. Because I don't want you to like, how do I even like? For me, I was like, how do I even dial? Like on the like
Uh-huh.
that's what I was doing. So I watched all the
Uh-huh.
videos, and their tech
Hmm.
support's really good and helpful. So
See, that one too, KV Core offers that, which it makes it easier when I
yeah,
have everything. I just press green button and it will dial for me, one at a time
yeah,
though. So, okay.
that's exactly how ready mode is. It's like you change it from your status of doing prep work or break
Uh-huh.
to ready. So it's you put it in
Yeah.
ready mode and it just starts dialing.
It's
So
just
you just
dial.
like
Yeah. Okay.
you just sit back and like put your headphones on and then oh like someone answered like hey. So it's like
Yeah.
that. Um
Okay.
is that one you're planning to use ready mode?
I'm gonna give that a go.
Okay.
Ready.
So if you use that, well, first, you actually, before we talk about the performance, let's talk about the phone numbers. I think I mentioned earlier, I'd
Yeah, you
probably
said
try to get 30 phone numbers for
30.
that particular area code that you're calling in. So, whatever area code, so that people actually pick up the phone and the numbers have time
Okay.
to rest in between.
Okay. And this
And
is like when I do ready mode, it would give me options to, is that an add-on kind of,
yeah, they actually, your salesperson, they'll talk to you and they say, hey, like, because to use numbers, they actually provide them. So they'll
okay.
charge you, but it's just the same prices that you would get from anywhere else, probably cheaper because it's from them.
Hmm.
So you can get numbers from them, and then you'll be able
Did,
to easily switch it out or buy more if a number gets marked or something.
so what do you do? Let's say if you were able to like get contact like a conversation, then you just give them your direct number. Is that what you how you do it?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, for example, when people and when especially starting out, I want to eventually integrate Ready Mode or something with a CRM. But right
Hmm.
now, especially or starting out, if they say yeah they want to sell, first gather all the information, make sure they're a lead, and then it's like, hey, like, let's say they want to sell in 4 months. I'm like, hey, is it cool if I
Hmm.
just keep checking up with you? And they're like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like, I just want to stay in touch. And like, hey, like, let me give you my cell first before we go, so that it's my number. I'm calling from a work phone. And they're like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Let me write this down on my phone. So I would
Okay.
just do that.
Okay.
Now let's talk about performance, like the metrics that you actually have to be aware of now. So with ready mode, if you're on the triple line dialer, it doesn't
Hmm.
just like stay at triple line. Like sometimes it'll adjust, it'll slow down the dialing if needed because it uses a little bit of AI to see performance, or it'll speed up the dialing as needed. So it like stays roughly around triple line if you want it. I would
Hmm.
never purposely set it to call up to 12 lines because it can. But if you're solo, only person there, you're going to abandon so many calls. So what I mean by that is, let's say using triple line, 3 people pick up the phone at the same time. The first person gets it, the other two they're abandoned, and it'll just call them back later. And you
Hmm.
don't want to abandon too many calls because those could be leads. You're going to miss
Hmm.
so many
Yeah.
calls if it's just you. I like to stick to the triple, but sometimes it calls faster. So with ready
Mhm.
mode, if you're actually in ready mode, so it's actually dialing, for every hour, you will be able to call at least 500 people for the most part,
Uh-huh.
um, every single hour. And I guess your connect rate depends on your data, like how many people you actually talk to. But
Mhm.
for me, usually I can talk to at least, I don't know, it depends. Like sometimes in like a 3.5 hour shift, I might connect to 150 people, like actually
Wow.
talk. Yeah, so I mean, you
150.
you'll talk to a lot because you're using the dialer, and that's when the volume actually makes a difference. Because even if you're calling but a little bit, you're still doing the right work. It just takes so much longer. So
Mhm.
the
That's
metrics
pretty
that
good.
yeah, the metrics I would expect for you, probably
Uh-huh.
you'll be dialing at least 500 an hour. If you're actually dialing, at first you're going to be learning a lot. So
Yeah.
you might say 2 hours and you call for 30. That's okay. But over time, you're
Mhm.
just going to get used to it.
Okay.
Now, once you get used to it, at least 500 an hour, and even the bad list, like let's say not AI scored, no targeted, you'll probably still be able to get a lead every 1,000 dials. So with your good list, you'll probably do better than that. Um, that's just something to expect. Now, I don't want you to be like, I called 1,000, I didn't get a lead. Like that's not
Mhm.
how it works.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's random
Yeah.
within million numbers.
Yeah. That's
Um,
understandable. That's given. Yeah.
yeah. So that's like the performance metrics I'd expect for you to see at like worst case scenario. Here are the two metrics that I want you to be aware of that'll cause you to make adjustments. So
Okay.
that's in the dialer report. You'll learn this as you watch the videos, but there's one metric called calls to connect. So that metric is saying how many calls on average does it take for me to connect to one human on average or one connect. Now it depends on your data, but even like I said, for a
Mhm.
bad list, everyone's going to be different. It's different data. But for me, I was looking at like it was roughly around 15 dials to connect to one person on average. So that was kind of like my average with a bad, like high
Mhm.
equity, kind of an old, it was like a year or two old list. I was still using it, but that's still the call to connect rate. Now you will have your own number. I would just keep an eye
Mhm.
on that number every single day. And as soon as
15 dials.
yeah, as it significantly shoots up, that's when you're like, ooh, maybe I should add more data to this. Because what happens, let's say you get a list of 10,000 people and your call
Mhm.
to connect rate is 15 dials to connect one person on average. Maybe as you mark these as not interested, wrong number, a lead, whatever you mark it as, it'll take it out of
Mhm.
your call system and it'll shrink down from 10,000 to like 2,000 people. And these are the 2,000 people who never pick up the phone. Sometimes they'll
Mhm.
eventually pick up. Everyone picks up eventually because I get cold called, never answer, but sometimes I do. And so you just got to
Mhm.
catch them at the right time. Now, let's say once that shrinks down to 2,000 people, now you're at 50 calls to connect. Then it's like, oh, like I'm wasting time. So that's when it's like, I should add more data to this so it evens
Mhm.
out again and it comes back down. So that's the metric that I would like you to look at as one of the
Okay.
important ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, the other thing too, and this one isn't as important as your calls to connect. Just look at your abandonment rate. We talked about it a
My
little bit
what? I'm
earlier.
sorry. Say that again.
Your abandonment rate. So
Abandon. Okay.
how many dials you're abandoning. Ready mode auto selects it to like 2.5%. So yours might be there, yours might be higher, just depending on the data
Mhm.
that you use. But you just don't want to abandon like 10% of your calls because those are all people that picked up the phone, but you missed it because you're on the other line. And those could all be leads. So you don't want to abandon too many.
So less than 10%.
I mean, I set mine to try to target under 2.5%. So,
Oh
because what
wow.
I do is I direct ready mode to say if it passes that threshold, slow down the
Mhm.
dialing. Because that and I do that.
Uh,
So like it'll automatically slow it down from triple line to maybe double line or
oh, you
single
can set
line.
that up. You
Yeah,
can
so it
set that.
automatically does it because I'm like, oh, I'm missing too many calls.
Okay. I'm just gonna
So
put 2.5 or less is the goal, but to start off, at
now
least
you
less
have
than
all you have all you have the game plan now. You have the entire game plan. You know to ignore the people that are telling you you can't do this, and
10%.
you have your time. The hardest thing about this is actually committing because I'm gonna be honest with you, it's boring. Like it can get boring. It's the hard,
Mhm.
boring work that everyone avoids. Because you might say like I got 20 hours a week, or you have 25 hours a week. So let's say 20 hours a week are actually spent cold calling. I should probably give you a heads up about like, the game plan of how to break it up because it is
Mhm.
hard. Like I've never cold called 6 hours straight. It's
Yeah,
really hard. Like
it's
you take
hard. Oh,
breaks.
yeah.
So Usually for me, I'll call in like 2 hour increments and then take a break. I just need a break after that usually.
Hmm.
So I'll take a walk or something. So plan that all into your schedule. Like plan for your breaks, because the worst thing
Hmm.
is for you to set a, like, let's say you set yourself 6 hours to cold call today, and then you do sit at the desk for 6 hours, but in the meantime you're like, oh, like you're going to the bathroom, you're
Hmm.
walking, you're away from the screen, so you're not actually dialing for 6 hours. So
Yeah.
I would set the schedule to say like, okay, I'm going to dial for an hour here or 2 hours right here, scheduled, like put the break into your calendar to say like, I'm going to take this break because I need it, and then here's when I'm going to restart the calls again, so that your
Time
ratio
block.
of how long you're actually dialing versus what's on
Hmm.
your what's on your calendar is actually accurate. So that's what you want to do.
That's a good advice.
Yeah, but
'Cause I think,
any questions? Because we broke down everything.
oh, yes. I mean, I really, really appreciate you giving me the insight of you broke it down to me like what I need to do. So now I'm more like knowing that I have a like a goal, like a structure, like what I need to do, CRM. So I could like go through the
Mhm.
list and I could feel better that, oh my God, I actually doing what we talked about. But now it's just a matter of laser focus myself on this 4 items that I wrote down and get started. So
Yeah.
now I think my mindset right now is to focus on what we talk about, give myself at least a week or two to establish a solid schedule. So
Hmm.
until then, I'm going to go back to a bad habit because I don't have a structured
Yeah.
schedule. So I think I need to dedicate a day to gather up all my like scattered notes and
Yes.
things to do and then compile it in a smaller attainable goal.
Yes. Yeah. I would that probably be your first step is like take a hard good look at your schedule
Yes.
and actually track every single 15-minute increment of your time. Like I know it might be a little bit tedious. What kind of
I was just
calendar
gonna say,
system do
whoa.
you use? I know I'm dead serious. Like what kind of
Uh-huh.
calendar do you use?
I do Google, so that's the thing. I haven't learned how to. I have two different. I have the iCalendar from my iPhone, and then I have
Hmm.
Google strictly for work. But I haven't done anything investment part schedule wise.
Okay.
So
And
I
okay,
have,
so
yeah. So
that the reason
how?
why I brought that up for you was
Uh,
most people that are starting out and they say they
uh,
got 25 hours a week, they find by the end of the week we're like, where did that time go? Like what
yes.
happened? And it's everything. So whenever you're trying to set a new schedule for yourself, like
Mhm.
legitimately for just 1 week, just track every 15-minute increment as you go. So let's say you tell yourself I'm gonna wake up at 4:30. You wake up at 4:30, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get to start working by, I don't know, 5 or 6, whatever it is you
Mhm.
say. And then
Mhm.
what if you get started by 8? Like I would track every single increment. And I did this for myself. So when I woke up, let's say I wanted to start
Mhm.
working 30 minutes after I woke up. Let's say I didn't. Let's say I started working 2 hours. I would write into my calendar as a reminder during this hours from 4:30 to 5:30, I was scrolling on TikTok like an idiot. Like I would write idiot, like scrolling like
Ah,
on TikTok. So like track everything. And then
okay.
by the end of the week, you'll see that's where my time is spent. And then it's just a matter of trying to improve little by little on like that downtime, because your time, you have
Hmm.
limited time to do this, and the only
Yes.
way to spend enough time to succeed is
Hmm.
to understand where your time's going.
Hmm. I
Does
agree.
that
I
make
agree.
sense?
It does. I mean,
Okay.
everyone that I talk to, right off the bat, time block, time block. And I
Yeah.
never, I would try it, but what the way you said it, I think it makes more sense. Just you have to keep track because otherwise you think you're working, but you're not working.
Yeah, 100%. Like for example, like I said, just a general 30-minute thing on this thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to extend it to the hour that it took and say, okay, that's where my time was. So I'm like, what happened in this? Like, why didn't I do my calls during this? I was like, oh yeah, everything's there, so you can actually review that whole
Okay.
thing.
And
But
you do this on your which calendar? Like
I like Google Calendar.
Google. I need to
Yeah.
get familiarized. Yeah. It
Do
gets
you,
too fancy for me.
yeah.
I
Do
just
you?
do very basic.
Yeah. So what? I mean, what other kind of questions do you got? Anything else, or do you think you have a pretty good game plan now?
I think I do have a pretty game plan now. I now my mind is clear. I feel like now I'm more I have like goal to reach. because when I first started, I'm being honest with you, the first 2 weeks of the wealthy investor, I'm like on it. Like I know,
Yeah.
like I feel confident, I feel like energetic, like, oh, I can do this. And then little by little, oh my God, I'm doing so much now. Like because I'm gonna be honest with you too. Those 2 months I was not working. I took
Hmm.
some time off so that's why I was able to focus. Now I'm back to struggling work, basically three work and then kids and all that. I'm having a hard time.
Hmm.
So this is a good start. Now I'm back to my structured. My mind works better when there's a structured goal. I have a like accountability. This is what I'm gonna do. I need to get to that. Then I just put some time within the first 2 days. This should be done. That's how I work.
Hmm.
So I like this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm happy this helped.
It
But yeah,
does.
yeah, just now you got the game plan. Now it's executing, and just
Yes.
keep in mind, it's you got to do what's required. You got to do the
Hmm.
work that's needed.
Calling
It's not just
the
doing
boss.
your best. And the hardest
Mhm.
thing too is doing it when you don't feel like it. Like, and it sounds cliche. It sounds like it's the like, of course, but when you actually go through it, like you'll know, "Ah, I still got to do it. Like for example, I didn't sleep yesterday, and it's like you wake up, you're like, crap, like I got to do it,
Yeah.
and you still do the stuff that needs to be done. So like that's the hard part. So just stay
Hmm.
consistent, and I promise you that stuff adds up.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah,
Action. I need to put on more action and just talk.
yeah. Well, I'm
All right.
happy we had this chat. I mean, it sounded like you were anxious, overwhelmed, and now you got a game
Ah,
plan, and now you know
yes.
what people do ignore.
Yes. I appreciate your time, Justin. I really, truly learned from how to structurize my schedule, and it gives me a different perspective, especially when you start throwing in numbers. So
Yeah, yeah. The
that's
numbers
good.
are everything.
Yeah.
So I will.
Yes.
Well, if you ever need anything, let me know too. But if you need again like the quicker questions, because uh, I don't really have a lot of time for like the one-on-ones, but if you need like quick access, your success managers, Casey, Chris are awesome. If you need something like more like this, for like, hey, I'm really, really lost, like yeah, I'm happy to help on
Mhm.
another one of these.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Justin. Good luck to your
Absolutely.
new venture in Vegas.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure
Well,
you
good
do
luck,
well.
and then keep yourself accountable because no one knows if you're doing the work or not but you. So
Just
hold
me.
yourself
Yeah.
to it.
All
All
right.
right.
Awesome.
Take